Apple shipped a Siri app. It's not a voice command, but it's an actual app. It sits on your home screen. It remembers everything that you've ever asked it, and it carries that context forward to the next conversation. Now, iPadOS 27 has over 200 new features. Everyone's done the walkthrough, but no one is asking the question that actually matters here. Does this actually change how you use your iPad? Well, I've been using the iPadOS 27 beta for the past few weeks, and I found 5 features that quietly did. So let's get started. Okay, first, Siri has a dedicated app now, and I don't think people quite understand the magnitude of what the shift this is going to cause because it is gigantic. The interaction with Siri has always been over a voice layer, and you invoke it, you ask it questions. Sometimes it gets those answers right, a lot of time it gets those answers wrong, but more importantly, the interaction, it disappears. You can never go back to the previous answer or the previous question that you asked it, and there's no way for you to carry that context forward. Well, now there is an app for that. Your conversation history is stored, it is searchable, it is accessible right inside of the Siri app. You can scroll back through what you've asked it, tap into previous conversations, and Siri carries that context forward. So I can ask it, how tall is the Burj Khalifa in centimeters?
The Burj Khalifa is 82,800 centimeters tall to its architectural height, or 82,980 centimeters if you include the
tip. Yeah, you always gotta include the tip. But I can even follow up and ask it, what famous movies were filmed at the Burj Khalifa? And it knows, it remembers, you don't have to reestablish context every single time within the conversation. And here's the thing that I think people are still trying to wrap their mind around, is that whether you're swiping down, you don't have to get to Siri, whether you're hitting the side button to get to Siri, all of this flows into the same place. The bubble interface, the swipe down gesture, they're not separate features, guys. They're all entry points into a persistent Siri experience. And where things get really interesting, Siri can take actions inside of apps because it knows what is on your screen. Let's go ahead and open up Photos, brighten this photo. And it did it. It's cool. Like, it just does it through your voice, which is actually kind of amazing that it works that way, but it really does work. No menu diving, no white balance selection, no sliders. And I'll be honest with you, it's not perfect. Sometimes when you're doing complex multi-step actions, it will still trip up Siri sometimes, which I think it's only expected this early in the beta, but it's only gonna get better from here. But based on what we're seeing right now, Siri went from something that you use to talk at to a place that you go on your iPad. And that's not a feature update, that is a completely new way to interact with your iPad. All right, feature number 2 is shortcuts. Now I know what you're thinking, shortcuts have been around for a long time. Mike, it's not anything new. Well, now you can interact with shortcuts and it completely removes a barrier to entry to setting a shortcut up. You do not need to be an expert in order to use shortcuts any longer. Now in iPadOS 27, you can describe it with shortcut what you want using natural language, and your iPad, it just builds it for you. Whenever I connect my iPad to an external display, turn on full screen apps, and it just made it. It was so cool because the trigger, the action, it's all done within just a matter of seconds. No more dragging tiles, looking up what each variable does. I don't need no 20-minute YouTube tutorial to figure out how to code an iPad for this shortcut. It is dead simple, and that's the thing because it actually works. Whenever I connect my iPad to the external display, it just turns on full screen mode. I didn't have to code anything. I didn't even have to open up the shortcuts editor. I described what I wanted in a single sentence, and shortcuts built it. I know it's not exactly vibe coding, but it feels like vibe coding, guys. You don't need to learn any logic. You don't need to understand the automations themselves. You just describe the vibe of what you want, and it actually makes it happen. Now, for someone who's never had the patience to learn shortcuts properly, this feature is what finally makes automation and shortcuts accessible to everyone. Feature number 3 is Photos. Now, I know AI photo editing, it is everywhere. Google's doing it, Samsung's doing it, but Apple's version, it's baked into the Photos app on every device, and there are 3 things that actually solve real problems. First, it's cleanup. Inside a photo, you click on the edit, you click on tools, which is a brand new control right here in the bottom left-hand corner. And then here on the right-hand side, you have 3 different tools. You got cleanup, you have extend, and you have reframe. Let's click on cleanup. And what we have here is there's a new control in the top right-hand corner. You can either do fast or you can do high quality. I want to do high quality. Either using your finger or the Apple Pencil, you can just swipe over and then click clean up. And if you see here, it's gone. And I'm not talking about smudgy iOS 26 removal disappears. I'm talking like legit disappears. No clone stamp, no manual brushing. Apple Intelligence will fill in the background behind it, and it looks great. Second is going to be extend. You pull the edge of your photo outward and AI will actually generate what is beyond the frame itself. So if you took a photo that was just too tight, you could just make it wider. It auto-generates the background matching the lighting, the texture, whatever's inside of the photo frame. Click there, plus. And finally, it's gonna be Reframe. This one is subtle, but I think it's probably my favorite. You can change the aspect ratio of a photo, and instead of just cropping it, Apple Intelligence will recompose the photo based on the scene. So here you can see that I'm holding my phone kind of outright looking at the screen. I'm going to change the photo where I'm actually over here. We're gonna go out, and there so it's gonna be recomposing everything in this bottom left-hand quadrant of the phone. I'm gonna click Reframe, and it adjusts the perspective, it moves the subject, and it's not just cutting off parts of the photo, it's literally rebuilding it, thinking about the composition, which is kind of crazy. I think this is a good example of maybe not being perfect at launch, but being better the second time around. There it is, and it even fixed or even added my shadow right here. Kind of wild. Now, none of these are gonna take or replace the use of Pro Tools like Lightroom or Photoshop. Those are $10 a month, and it's not even the point that they're gonna replace those tools. The point is that most people who edit photos on their iPad and post them to share them to Instagram or Facebook or whatever the case is, these tools take the friction out of that workflow entirely, and you don't need to learn an editing app or worry about layers or adjustments. You just need to know what you want the photo to look like when you are done. Feature number 4, Safari. So this is the one that I didn't expect to care about as much, but it's quietly become one of the things that I use every single day. It's tab topics. Safari will now automatically group your open tabs into topics. So if you're researching a purchase, let's just say for like a new monitor, Safari will collect all those tabs into a monitor research group so it's easy for you to identify them. This is the evolution of what I think is tab groups from, I think, iPadOS 17 or iPadOS 18. But if you're planning a trip, it'll group your flight, hotel, restaurants all together into a tab. So you don't need to recreate the group. You don't need to name them. Safari will figure it all out. And it'll even recommend related tabs. So if you're searching for a topic, let's say on standing desks, Safari will surface a review or a comparison that you probably hadn't thought about. And it's almost like having a research assistant that's paying attention to what you're doing when you aren't paying attention. I love that because it just makes everything easier. But the thing that actually sold me are on price drop alerts. Let's open up Safari here. So when it drops, you get a notification on this device. That's it, no third-party app, no email newsletter, no more camel notifications. It is built right into Safari and it's on your iPad. Now for people who are doing research and shopping, which I think most of what is being done on their iPad and on Safari, these two eliminate the two biggest pain points, which is tab overload and price anxiety. It's simple as that. Feature number 5 is visual intelligence. This used to be an iPhone only feature, but in iPadOS 27, it is finally on the iPad. And honestly, I think it makes more sense here on the iPad than it ever did on the iPhone. So here is how it works. You take a screenshot of anything that you want, a plant, a landmark, a product, a restaurant sign, and then you circle with what you want to know more about it with your finger or the Apple Pencil, and visual intelligence goes to work to identify it, pulls up relevant information instantly. And because you're using the Apple Pencil, it just feels natural in a way that never felt natural on the iPhone. You're already holding the tool and you're already looking at the screen. You just circle the thing that you're curious about and the answer is there. This is one of those features that sounds small until you get to using it, and then you start circling everything that you possibly can. It turns your iPad into a device that doesn't just display information, it understands what's on the screen and lets you act on it. That is fundamentally a different interaction model. It even works inside of Apple Photos, does the same exact thing. So does iPadOS 27 make the iPad useful? Well, here's what I think. Siri isn't a voice command anymore.
I found some web results. I can show them if you ask again from your iPhone.
Oh, that is super funny. It's an app, a destination that you go, it remembers what you asked and carries that context forward to let you take actions inside of other apps. That alone changes the relationship that you have between you and your device. But then you add in shortcuts and the ability for them to build themselves using natural language, and photos that clean up and reframe themselves, Safari that organizes the research and tracks prices for you, and visual intelligence that turns anything on your screen into something that you can identify, learn more about, and act on. None of these things are flashy enough to where they, have their own long drawn out keynote presentation, but together they quietly close the gap between, should I use my iPad for this? To, I can do that on my iPad. And here's the thing, the iPad isn't trying to be a Mac anymore. It's actually trying to be a better iPad, a device that understands what you asked yesterday, builds the automation that you asked for, described in plain English, and edits your photos because you told it to. That's not a desktop app on a tablet. That is a device that actually is designed to work how you work. And if you want to know which iPad apps I cannot absolutely live without, I'll put a link down in the video description. Guys, if this video was helpful for you, drop a comment with what feature you are most excited about. Make sure that you are subscribed because I've got more iPad, iPhone, and Mac videos coming to make you more efficient with those devices in your setup. My name is Mike, guys, and I am out of here.